And now I'm going to do a second video, which is, yeah, following in the footsteps of some of my other favorite channels, which would include Sticks Hex and Hammer 666. I'll do more than one short video in the run of a day rather than stream whatsoever, since it is fairly simple for me to just say what I have to say. Because I've got ideas which I'm working on here, and then I've got ideas which I want to work on in video terms. And the video terms are starting to call to me a little more, as you might have guessed from what I've got currently on the screen. Yeah, I can show this off. Sure, I can show this off before I go any further. So there's that. I wanted to say that I started a video series, a week or two ago, and when I did, I promised that there would be 2 more parts coming, and 2 more parts are still coming. Here is the interesting thing. The 2 parts which are coming depend on input, not always from me, but from other people. And I'm waiting in particular for an event to occur that I can get some of the ongoing input for the next video, for part 3. And then part 4 is the video which is going to take care of all of the remaining parts, or maybe not changes, but updates or specific details that clarify a position or two I might have taken in the previous 3 videos. So that's taking a bit of work, and it's not terrible work. It's just going to take a little while to work. So if you're like a regular subscriber to my channel, thank you very much for your continued interest. And if you'd like to see more of what I was doing when I was talking about like Hammurabi, or talking about ethics and why it is that we can frame rules for behavior in, say, a positive fashion or a negative fashion, why this might be an interesting conversation to actually have partly on YouTube at this moment in time. That's what I'm interested in. That's not all that I'm interested in. I'm also interested in video work. And the video work side of it is calling to me really, really, really hard as of late. So I want to start putting more attention into that aspect of it. So the next video I hope to be putting up for the ongoing series on ethics will be more engaging, I think, than me merely reading information off of a screen or something like that, or talking to you like this. It will be at least me talking to other people who will also be talking and doing the majority of the talking, because I'm cool with that. But what I cannot currently do, if anyone happens to be watching this and wondering, geez, is it worth talking to this asshole or not? I can't currently live stream. My live streaming has been shut off by a community strike, which doesn't appear as a community strike. So I've got no strikes, copyright or community, showing on my page, but yet I'm not allowed to live stream for whatever reason. Not allowed to, because I said the wrong thing. I haven't deleted any videos. You can go back and see what it was that I said before my live streaming abruptly ceased, at your own leisure. Maybe I'll put a link in the description of this video to that video. That might be cool, but it's a long one. And I'm not interested in doing these long ass videos anymore, but I would be interested in having some very specific types of debate. So I might as well throw this in as I get into it. I'm not a recent convert to internet blood sports, but by any means, but what's currently being called IBS is also a development upon a very much older internet idea, which is not so much the flame war as the constant troll war, which can now take place 24/7 in a virtual environment, which beforehand was prevented from occurring in such like an ongoing and relentless basis, simply because of the necessities of polite society and the difficulties in getting away with it. In fact, if you were to do what would be, I hate to say this, I can say this because I know I'm not going to be, I'm not guilty of it. So I can say this. what we used to do in polite society when we trolled one another had to be done in real time, in real space. And if you involved yourself with more than one individual in making some troll event occur in the future, that could be construed as some form of conspiracy, yes? So that's part of the reason, I think, why it is the internet troll revolution has become such a source of panic inducement. Like the media likes to hammer on as if they know stuff about trolls or whatever, when in fact they seem to have entirely missed the meaning of what trolling is, or how trolling is done, or why it is that trolling can be done to good effect. But hey, I'm talking about internet blood sports. I'm not talking about trolling, right? How does the best internet blood sport occur? I'll tell you another thing I'd be interested in debating. It's not just on trolling or on IBS, but I'd also be interested in debating on the interface between faith and science. That's one thing I'm interested in. What do I mean by that? Faith and science. As a scientific-minded person and as a skeptic who likes to take a skeptical position more or less, not out of force of habit, but because I recognize that over the long term is worked better for me to do it that way, to be skeptical about what seems to be apparently true off the go, off the cuff, off the hop. And that's the thing. That's the thing with science, is that it doesn't expect any given hypothesis that you operate from to be evidently true simply because you've stated it. Science expects you to try to break that hypothesis. Falsification works just as well as proof positive. If you understand what I'm saying, like the best way to prove your hypothesis has no kind of like hidden variables or whatever is to challenge it from a whole bunch of different points of view, or from different angles of attack, we could say. And that's why science and faith seem to me to be in two different camps most of the time, because faith, depending on what you mean by that, doesn't necessarily stand the process by which science will determine some form of truth. If that which you have your faith put in, some sample of this, that, or the other thing, gets burned up or consumed in the course of your testing, in the course of your experimentation, and your faith was in that entire thing, whatever it happens to be, and or the amount of it, perhaps, I don't know, then what? Yeah, maybe that's what maybe I'm getting a little too esoteric there. Faith and science gets into a bunch of different topics in either case. Faith, I could talk about economics, I could talk about religion. What am I most skeptical about in either case, economics or religion? Or even science of, say, genetics. What I am most skeptical about is not, see? Careful with my tongue here. What I'm most skeptical about is theological structure, which in tonight's, I happened to be on Harbastard's channel earlier this evening watching his broadcast. In the chat, someone said that a particular institution in the United States was beginning to look more and more cult-like. And I objected to his use of the term, not that I'm not because I'm an American citizen, but because the cult has very little to do with the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy is an infrastructure. There's a bunch of offices which are being occupied by people which are themselves part of other cultures who are occupying these bureaucratic structures. And to some degree, this structure, the bureaucratic structure, has arisen because of those cultures, one or more than one. So I'm a little skeptical about theological structure. I'm really skeptical about theological structure. Religion, I've got a little more play with, But theological structure, and in particular blind faith upon a specific source, which the more you examine it, the less of it exists, the more I tend to favor the scientific approach. So that's one of my pet peeves. The third thing I'd really like to debate. I'd like to debate it in the near future, and I don't know if this will ever happen. I should probably contact the person I'm most interested in debating on this one and see what he says, because it would be easy for. I'll talk about this. I would like to debate the moon landing, hoax or not. But I'd like to debate it with another YouTuber. And this YouTuber, I have never shown his content on my channel, and I've never talked about him. But this YouTuber's name is Alquan, and I have spent time on his channel listening to some of his content, not always agreeing with his content, but listening. And I participated in one of his live streams in a chat room the other night and was getting direct feedback, so I knew it wasn't like I was being filtered out. It wasn't like I was being blocked or content filtered or anything like that. No. It was interactive, and it was better for me and for people that I seem to be interacting with that it was interactive. We all agreed that the interaction was great. Okay? Alquan is his name. I would really like to debate the moon landing. And I would take the position that the United States did indeed land on the moon starting in 1969 and going onwards until about 1972. So that's 11 and 12, 14, 15, 16, and 17. And they had to have gone there on Apollo 8 and also Apollo 10. So that meant that several of the astronauts had done it twice. Who was they? Young was one of them. Gene Cernan was one of them. Borman and Lovell, they did it, didn't they? Anyhow, I would take the position, tentatively speaking, so that there could be a debate that the moon landings did indeed exist or did indeed occur. However, I could be persuaded into accepting that perhaps they did not, and I'd be interested in hearing what the particular arguments against it are. I've heard many, and I'd like to hear them one more time. But because I think many of them have answers which are understandable and explainable. They don't require that you have a full knowledge of rocket science in order to make it, in order to understand why it's true. So I'd like to have that debate. And I'm a fanatic in two regards. Like I like listening to the records which do exist, but I don't necessarily like the political ways in which the space programs of the world were and are used for political goals, and how they're used at particular times, to get people to swing one way or the other based on raw popularity or raw hatred. So I happen to remember back at around 2012 when all of the liberals were saying, "Oh, space, why would you want to go to space when there's so much to do here on Earth?" Yes, on Earth, which is overpopulated, if I listen to your same dumb, inane arguments. So I think space is a good thing, and I also think that space, this gets me into an argument with another one of my favorite YouTubers. Guess who? It's Styx. I think the Russian rocket tests are not always to do with nuclear weapons. I think they're to do with space. I think they're to do with developing space, if not transportation, access to shipping, not even mass transit, but shipping practical amounts by the ton to orbit or beyond. And this is why when they're using size or scales of rockets which are big enough, which are really like they're comparable in size to things which were being developed in the late 60s and 70s, we're talking about missiles which have the ability to go as far as, guess what? The moon. That's why I started talking about it. I got one more video to do. I'm going to stop it off here and do it.